Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. In today's First Impressions video, we are taking a look at my brand new Steyr STG77 AUG. And before we get this video started, there are no sponsors for this video. How you can help me out is just by simply following my channel. If this is your first time here, you can hit that subscribe button if you're interested in 2014 style YouTube videos. That was one of the biggest compliments I ever got. This channel is just straight up, unbiased, honest gun reviews. So if you're looking for that, stick around, hit the subscribe button, comment down below. All that stuff really helps me out. What a random rifle that I came across here recently and is now on my tabletop. I have really not had any interest in bullpups for pretty much the entire time that I have been in the gun world. They just never really did it for me. It was kind of like, it just never really scratched that itch, or really was never an itch that needed to be scratched, I should say. Yes, I watched Die Hard and all these other movies back in the day, but again, it just never really was something that was on the top of my list. But recently, as you guys know, I've been kind of checking off all of these boxes of guns that I really have always wanted to have, and I started to get a little bit stagnant with rifles. So that's why I picked up the SIG 556, and I was looking for something else that just really, I don't know, was a little different. And I just came across the AUG. I didn't realize that Steyr dropped the STG77s again. If you're not familiar with the STG77, that is essentially the original AUG. And if you're gonna do an AUG, this is what you gotta do. It's the M1 variation, OD green, of course, a 20-inch barrel that we'll talk about in a bit. You got some nice vented ribs up there. And then you also have the old school cool 1.5 power magnified donut hole of death optic up here on the top. And that is, in any video game, in any movie, all the 80s movies, if you saw an AUG, this was the configuration you would have seen it in, minus the select fire capabilities. This, of course, takes standard AUG waffle mags and not NATO mags, and it has all of the original controls. So I came across this, I'm like, you know what? Yes. And I just kind of immediately was happy that I got it when I was playing around with it here in the armory at the Firearm Freedom compound. I don't know, I just meshed with it really well. I've never had a problem with the AUGs. I've always handled them a few times, shot them here or there, and I never understood a lot of the crazy hate that these rifles got from random people that I talked to about them. Usually, a lot of the complaints were trigger or something else that just, hey, the gun just sucks because of this particular reason. So, of course, you guys know the deal. I had to check it out myself, and typically what I find a lot of the time is that a lot of the frustrations out there are from folks that just don't really own or shoot the rifle frequently. So, this rifle is just kind of a space gun, as you will constantly hear it thought of in the industry. Now, how this rifle kind of changes for the practical ability is you do have your 1.5 power magnified optic. This is what I would consider the tried and true look of the AUG. You also have these kind of funny quick access Glock sights essentially up here in the top, and those, although are semi-usable, are maybe not the most practical. And what this is missing that a lot of other standard, more modern AUGs have is really any ability to have a rail to mount something like a flashlight or something else to this gun. You're pretty much would have to go with like a barrel mount up here, which I don't know that I would recommend. So really, the STG77 is, you're pretty much going to keep it like this. Now, the one nice thing is that originally the 1.5 power optics were just one piece with the receiver itself. But in this case, with the STG77s, Steyr has actually been pinning them to the upper, and that is removable. So you can remove this section. You could probably see that there's a seam there. This comes off, and then you could put a standard flat top Picatinny rail up on the top portion if you wanted to. So that is absolutely an option. This is also going to still feature a quick detach QD cup here in the front of the rifle, and it did come with the actual swivel itself in the front. And in the rear, your sling swivel is actually part of your takedown pin, so that all pulls out once you press in the small divot here in the rear of the stock. So that comes with swivels, which is nice. It does not come with a sling. And this is a little bit of a quick local shout out to Huberworks. And this is a Huberworks OD green sling. It's padded. I purchased this. I have no affiliation with Huberworks. He's just a local guy. I do know him personally. I've talked to him a few times. He used to come into the gun shop that I actually worked full time at. This is an incredible sling. The reason why I say that is it's very light. So in a situation like this where your sling mount is right next to your charging handle, and it's real important to get to, I don't have to worry about a super thick cotton web sling. This worked out really, really well. So for the AUG, it worked out great, and the OD green that he uses actually almost perfectly matches the AUG. It reminds me a lot of a Faro Slingster in some ways, up by the way that he does the tri-glide, but what I love about this setup here is that it is plastic. So I've seen a lot of other slings out there with this quick adjust system. They use steel pieces here for their buckles. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. This isn't going to break, and it's also not going to scratch the ever-loving shit out of the side of my very nice AUG here. So this sling worked out great. Small little shout out there. And I don't have any other accessories. This is essentially exactly how you see it. I did pick up 5 other Steyr AUG magazines, so that was nice. As far as shootability goes, at the range, this thing shot great. It was 100% reliable. I put about 200 rounds through it in this first impressions video. 0 issues whatsoever. I did break it down ahead of time, clean it, lube it up, but I've heard, like, rarely out there online reliability issues with the AUG, and I've heard that a lot in gun shops for whatever reason. And I didn't know what to expect, but I had 0 malfunctions from no rounds to 200, ran great. The trigger, although it is a bulb-up trigger, it's really not bad. I would compare it very much so to like a mil-spec AR trigger. So you really have barely any take-up. Like, that's your take-up, and then it's, once you get that wall, it's right there. And that's your break, and that's it. Now for reset, it is, you know, not the best, not the worst. There's your reset, and that's it. It does feel very plasticky because the entire gun is almost all plastic. So it has a plastic feel, but it's definitely not something that you're not going to be able to shoot fast. That was something that I was super unsure about. I'm like, is this going to be a super slow gun to shoot? But it was fine. I had no issues with the trigger whatsoever. So that's, you know, something to just be aware of. You do have a folding vertical grip up here. So this does, upon pulling down, will fold up. I didn't shoot it in that position at all. I didn't really feel that it was worth it. And again, in this variation, you do have a 20-inch barrel. Now, the standard AUGs are going to be 16 inches, and they are definitely shorter. But you know, a lot of people want these bulb-ups to be as short as humanly possible. For me, it's a 5.56 gun. I love the fact that this is a 20-inch barrel. It's still about as compact as a 16-inch gun, but now I have 20 inches of full velocity out of the 5.56 or 223 cartridge that I might be putting through this. So to me, that makes all the sense in the world for this to be a 20-inch barrel. You have this absolutely badass old Steyr STG77 muzzle device. They did a great job on that muzzle device. It's nearly identical to the original AUG's muzzle device, and it worked out fine. I have no plans on running this gun suppressed, so, you know, I have, again, no complaints there. A little bit of, I'm not even gonna say a little bit, it was unacceptable and ridiculously frustrating was the optic. So I went ahead and started to zero this optic. It was about 10 degrees at the range day that this was at. It was incredibly cold. And I began to realize as this was mounted on a tripod, I'm like, okay, so looks like we're gonna use, a little quarter action or something like that, which worked out well. There are no audible clicks to these dials. So that's hit number one that's a little bit frustrating. But then my friends, we get to the elevation setting, which is going to be, actually, I can't remember if this is elevation or this is windage, whatever. This dial on the bottom, okay? So as you can see, it's very difficult to get to, and you can't get any damn tool underneath here, and you also can't just turn the dial. So basically, I had to jimmy a dime up under there and do this number with my freezing fingers to try to get this to zero in. Now, some of you might say, well, Joe, it shouldn't have been that far off. It's from the factory. It shouldn't have been that big of a deal. Oh, but this optic was about 5 feet off of the target and into the berm at 50 yards. I mean, to no exaggeration, if you were aiming center mass, you were hitting 5 feet low and to the left, completely off of the paper and off of the cardboard. Guys, the MSRP on this rifle is roughly about $3,000, okay? That is unacceptable for it to be that far off of the damn target from the get. Just give it a base 0. Give it a little bit of a little bit of a laser bore sight or something. Come on. I should not need to shoot a whole mag of 30 rounds to try to zero this rifle at 50 yards. Now, again, if it was not as cold out, it wouldn't be as annoying to get to that bottom. But you have this secondary dial up here, why would that not be the second elevation or windage section? Why would it be all the way underneath this optic? That's the most annoying spot humanly possible. Now, once the optic was roughly zeroed in, after a lot of frustration, I didn't have any further issues, no walking zeros or anything like that. It ran fine. So there is that. Now, when it comes to this particular variation, I don't have any sort of brass deflector, so it is what it is. You just got to kind of not switch shoulders if you want to keep your teeth intact. So you're only going to be shooting it from this side. And then, of course, you do have a more old school bolt catch / release, old school magazine release that I actually didn't have any major issues with. This is your takedown section here, that button. Then we also have a cross bolt safety here, which again, no problems with. It reminds me a lot of a shotgun cross bolt, so it worked out well. And the only other weird thing I saw was that this charging handle from the get was unbelievably difficult to pull back. I mean, it was completely seized and locked into place. And then also the rubber on the rear portion of the stock here was super ashy and looking old. So there was about 200 of these in stock in distribution. So maybe this has been sitting for a long time, and that's why it was just so tight and the rubber was looking a little bit old. It is what it is. I'm not terribly worried about it. What I did is I put a little bit of lube up in the spring that's in here and just kind of worked it time and time again, and it got much, much better. Rifle ran clean, and overall, I freaking love this thing. So there's gonna be a lot more videos of this in the future, and it's kind of making me want to get an M3 a little bit. So we'll see about that. But of course, let me know what you think of this AUG down in the comment section below. While you're down there, head up to the description for the ways to support the channel. And as always, stay tuned for more great videos coming soon.